For this week's grammar review, we're going to be looking back at last week's quiz. The average score was a 60, which is not the worst it's been, but certainly not the best. There are several questions on here where the average score was really low. So I want to go through the questions that were most missed and help you hopefully better understand why you missed them so that on future quizzes you will choose the correct answer. And hopefully, you will understand how to avoid mistakes like this in the future. For number one, I was really surprised that only 57.6% of you got this question correct. This was the skill in last week's grammar practice. It was literally asking about italics and quotation marks and when to use each one of those depending on the type of work it is. So if it's a longer work, it's going to be italicized. If it's a shorter work, it's going to have quotation marks in it. And a lot of you chose the answer choice that was literally the same, but you changed the italicized part to quoted. Several of you chose that answer. I have no idea why. Hamlet is a play. It is a longer work. It is not a short story. It is not a poem, nor is it an article. It should not have quotation marks around it. I'm not sure why some of you changed that. Another significant number of you changed it to quotation marks and added a comma. I also don't understand why you would add a comma here. William Shakespeare's is a possessive noun. Hamlet is what it possesses. You don't separate those with commas unless what comes after it is functioning as an interrupter in the sentence, which it is not. Hamlet is the subject of the sentence. So I don't know why we added a comma there. And then some of you, a couple of you, not many, put commas around Hamlet. Like I can kind of get my mind around why you might have put commas around Hamlet, thinking that it was in a positive. But if you read the entire sentence, it is not in a positive. Hamlet is the subject of the sentence. So it doesn't need commas around it, and it certainly doesn't need quotation marks around it. Honestly, I thought this was a really easy question. So please, please, please review this. Review last week's practice. And I know some of you didn't do last week's practice, so maybe that's why so many people missed it. Also, note to self, do your practice questions before you do the quiz, and maybe that'll help you do better. But at any rate, please make sure that you are italicizing longer works. We have gone over this and over this and over this all year. Italicize Hamlet, italicize the titles of novels, put quotation marks around the titles of poems and short stories. Question 2 was better. We got 75.8% of you who got this one correct. This one was asking you about the use of commas, and it was also checking for making sure that you knew how to use correct parallel structure. So the first issue was, do you need commas to separate these items in a series, status, comma, wit, comma, or falling into madness? Yes, you do need those commas, which would rule out this answer choice right here. But also, this last part of the series is not parallel. Most of you did change that to madness correctly. So that would, well, we already eliminated this one. That would also eliminate no change. So now we're looking at basically what we have is A or C. And the reason a lot of you missed it is because you added a comma right here after nobility. So I want to talk for just a second about why you do not need a comma there. Some of you at this point see a fanboy and you think immediately, I need a comma before it because either A, it's two independent clauses and I need a comma and a conjunction, or B, it's items in a series and I need a comma before that last conjunction. That is true. Both of those things are true. However, neither one of those things are happening in the sentence. You have to read the entire sentence for context. The entire sentence says, many scholars analyze how Shakespeare reserves blank verse for nobility and formal speech while employing prose for moments of lower status, wit, or falling into madness. There are really only two things joined here. He reserved blank verse for this, formal speech for that. There's item number one, blank verse. Item number 2, formal speech. You don't separate two items with a comma and a conjunction. You just need the conjunction. There's not a dependent clause after this conjunction. This is not an independent clause right here. Sorry, I said dependent. I meant independent. This is not an independent clause. It's not a complete thought, so you don't need a comma here, and it's not 3 items, so you don't need a comma here. When you see an and, don't automatically put a comma before it. You have to read the sentence. If it's not either items in a series or 2 independent clauses joined with an and, then don't put the comma before the and. That's where a lot of you messed up on this one. Number 3, I was surprised on this one too. We have been working with punctuation with quotes all year. A lot of you put answer choice number 1, which has the period after the quotes. Several of you put that. We've not done that all year. I have never said at any point that this is correct, nor have I counted it correct on any of your essays. I've always corrected it. So I'm confused as to why we did that. That was also in last week's grammar practice. So again, if you watched the video last week, you should have gotten that correct. Or if you were present in class at all this year, you should have gotten that correct. The other option that a lot of people put, and this is the one that a lot of people selected that was the wrong choice. This is what threw you off. So you had the period before the quotation marks, which is correct. You had the comma before the introducing the quote, which is correct. However, you took out this comma. Again, it goes back to reading the entire sentence for context. In his first soliloquy is an introductory phrase. If you go back to Grammar Bootcamp at the beginning of the year, and also what we've talked about in our grammar review, introductory phrases like this one need commas after them. That's a comma rule that we've been over since the beginning of August. So if you took out this comma, you just broke a comma rule. When you read the entire sentence, it says, for example, in his first soliloquy, you got an introductory transition and an introductory phrase. Both of those need commas. Hamlet cries, comma, quote, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue, period, close the quotes. A lot of you took out this comma, which was wrong. Question number 4. 51.5% of you got this correct. Actually, I had a person keep this comma here in front of the however that is joining 2 independent clauses. We've been over that multiple times. We had a couple people do that. That is wrong. You have the word however, which is the subordinating conjunction that is joining 2 independent clauses. Because they are independent, you have to have a semicolon before it. So no change would be the wrong answer here. That being said, if the word however were just thrown into the middle of one independent clause as an interrupter, the commas on each side would be correct. So again, read the whole sentence. Make sure that you have the correct context. Most people who got this one wrong chose the answer choice that had, let me find it. That took out this comma. Again, read the entire sentence. If these transitions are not emphasized, is an introductory clause, dependent clause, in front of this independent clause. These sentences are complex. It is not just a simple subject, verb, object sentence that you're reading in these. And it won't be the case like that on Benchmark, nor will it be the case on EOC. If you are not reading the entire sentence and thinking about the structure of the sentence, you are going to select the wrong answer here. And it's not because you don't know the rules. You do know the rules. You have to make yourself read the entire sentence and think about, okay, how is this part of the sentence functioning within the rest of the sentence? This part of the sentence is an introductory dependent clause to the last independent clause. It's a complex sentence. Complex sentences require complex punctuation, and that's what's going on here. Some of you remove this comma. And I get it. We don't need commas some of the time. Some of the times we do need to remove the commas, but in this case, it's actually needed because it's an introductory phrase, introductory dependent clause. Okay, the last question, this one really made me sad. Only 18% got this question correct. And the reason is because a lot of us put a comma before this but right here, before the fanboy. So it goes back to what I was talking about a few questions ago. Don't look at a sentence, see a but right there, automatically assume that the but is joining two independent clauses, add a comma, and move on. Because that is not what is happening here. This but is not joining two sentences. It's not joining two independent clauses. It is actually functioning as a correlative conjunction. Okay, so I want to show you these two words right here, not only, go along with these two words right here, but also. They're called correlative conjunctions. They go together. And when they go together in sentences, you do not separate them with commas. Let me show you this graphic to kind of help you understand. Correlative conjunctions come in pairs to connect two ideas or two items in a sentence. They should also be parallel. So not only and but also are correlative conjunctions. You can see those right here. It is used to show the presence of two qualities. Not only is this true, but also this is true. So, for example, he is not only my friend, but also my colleague. These two groups of words come together. They're correlative. Other examples of correlative conjunctions are both and, either or, neither nor, no sooner than, hardly, when, as much as, just as so, if, then, not, but, whether, or, and not only, but also. Now, you don't have to memorize all of these, but what you do need to think about is how these things can function in sentences. It's joining two things. So when you see a conjunction like this, you see a but also together. If you ever see a but also together, it's probably a correlative conjunction and you don't need a comma. But even if you didn't know that and you just read the full sentence itself, you would see the first part of this is not an independent clause. It's not a complete thought. Therefore, you can't put a comma with this but. That means it's not joining an independent and an independent. So I hope those tips and this review has been helpful to you. I hope that you have paid attention to this and I hope that you've watched it all the way through because I really do feel like these things will help you on not only on future quizzes, but also on benchmarks, on EOC, on ACT English, and honestly, just in your writing in general. Having these grammar foundational skills is really important to be able to communicate effectively. So hopefully that's cleared up a few things and you will be able to see some more success on next week's quiz. Let me know if you have any questions.